Welcome, Truth Seeker. Hope you're just arriving. Really appreciate you guys signing up for Gematria School. This is going to be the first episode. Tonight, the topics we'll be covering, pull up my little chart here. You know what? Instead of looking at me, let's go to the screen so you can read along with what we're going to be covering this evening. I'm going to switch this over, and before I move ahead, I just want to make sure that we're transmitting and people are able to join through the Patreon page. See if it's popping up here. It looks like we are live. Okay, so people should be able to join right now. Give people a few minutes to get in here. The one thing that I need to figure out is how to make it so that this window shows up before the presentation begins, because I have it scheduled, but I notice it doesn't show up until right at 6 o'clock when the broadcast begins. So, assuming people are joining, able to get into class, you don't want to be tardy. The topics we're going to be covering tonight is what is Gematria? We're going to look at the Holy Bible in Genesis and some eye-opening verses, some undeniable coding of the English translations of the Bible. We're going to practice with the 4 base ciphers. My goal is to help you be able to do the 4 base ciphers in your head. There's a real advantage to having that skill, and perhaps it might be too much of a challenge to learn all 4. But just learning the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, if you can learn to do those ciphers in your head, you'll just catch a lot of things throughout the day, from advertisements, things you see on the street, road signs. And it's quite rewarding to be able to do the calculations and do them quickly enough to find the meaningful things that you pass along during the day. It's a lot like having on the sunglasses in the film They Live. We're going to make sure that we understand what prime numbers are, triangular numbers, and Fibonacci numbers, because they're very important to this study. Going to do the baseball example. Here we are in the baseball playoffs. A lot of people into the MLB playoffs, showing people the gematria of baseball and Major League Baseball. It's very fascinating. Earlier this year, when I was driving people around for Uber and Lyft, taking a lot of people to Mariner games, I really made a lot of baseball fans' day just sharing with them the simple coding of baseball and Major League Baseball. I think it's a good way to broach the subject for a lot of people. Then what we're going to do is we're going to open up and see what's live in the news, and we're just going to do a decode in real time. Again, I'm encouraging a lot of people to start their own blogs, their own YouTube channels, putting out this information, sharing this information whatever way they can. I want you guys to see in real time how simple it is to decode news and how quickly and efficiently it can be done. And we'll end with a question and answer session. Also, as we move through each section, once we finish section 1, I'm going to come and look at the chat. I'll let you know when I'm looking at the chat, because like right now I can't see the chat. I'll let you know when I can see the chat, and I'll ask if there's any questions or clarification, just like we were in the classroom. We finished part 1 of the lesson. I want to make sure everyone understood part 1 of the lesson before we move on to part 2. So on. So we'll take a short question and answer break. If you guys could do me a favor, and when I'm looking for those questions, if you could not clog up the chat with other things at that time, I'd appreciate it, because I want to see the questions from the people who need clarification. If you got a big question that's something different, that's going to be at the end. At the end, we'll do the Q&A and try to get as many questions answered as possible. So, before I move ahead, I'm going to just peek in the chat real quick. Since it's the first night, I want to make sure people are finding this and getting in here. I want to make sure I'm talking to an audience. Let's see. I have to go to YouTube to see if there's people in the chat. I see that Brandon's here. Brandon's a veteran at this. People who are brand new, it says there's 36 people watching now. Okay, so maybe people aren't using the chat. But if you are new to this format, I see Vince here. I see David, Bradley. Okay, people are here. This is good. I know a lot more people have signed up than the 35. Might be an experiment the first evening. People getting familiar with the platform. I mean, there has to be a way for people to see the post before 6 p.m. when I start broadcasting, because I don't get why that is. I scheduled it, so I feel like it should show up on the front page so people know where to come and click as soon as 6 o'clock gets here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being on time. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start moving ahead. For the people who show up late, they can always watch this later and catch up on what they missed out on. It is the first session, so of course there's going to be some hiccups, a little learning curve. All right. So again, let's go over what the first part of today's inaugural Gematria School lesson is. What is Gematria? And I'm sure a lot of you are somewhat familiar, but again, Gematria, it's the ancient practice of coding numbers into words, and it traces back to the Sumerians, traces back to the Hebrew alphabet, and it's a spiritual practice, and essentially it's about pairing words that have logical relationships as well as meaningful numerical overlap. And again, when I first began and I first read about what Gematria was, one of the first things that I read was that in Hebrew, the word God sums to 26. And in English, the word God sums to 26. And I said, well, that's really interesting, especially since there's a 26-letter alphabet. And I was looking for more information like that, some other matching words, and I was having trouble finding that. So I was like, you know what? I'll go out and I'll see what I can find. And I didn't know of any Gematria calculators or anything at the time, so I just started writing down words and decoding by hand. And fortunately, we now have tools such as Gematria.com. So when I first began, it wasn't long before I made this connection right here, which just blew my mind. It was just so mind-blowing discovering this, but just understanding that when you use the alphabetic order and God summed to 26, and it was the same in Hebrew, I said, well, if it's spiritual, I wonder if there's something to the name Jesus, because I knew that the name Jesus wasn't the original name. And so I wrote it out and I said, okay, Jesus equals 74. Well, what's the next most logical word to pair with Jesus? And I thought, I wonder what cross equals. And understand, I was writing these out and I had to think about it at the time. I was like, okay, C is the third letter. On a piece of paper, I had the entire alphabetic order written out. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. So I could just look at that. And I was like, okay, R is the 18th letter, O is the 15th, S is the 19th. And as I added this stuff up, I was like, wow, okay, they're the same. I was like, what's another word? How about Messiah? And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, Messiah is 74? And then I was thinking, what's another word? Okay, gospel. Okay, gospel 74, parable 74. And then it was probably like a week later, I was just reading more about the name Jesus, and I discovered that Joshua was the English translation. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Joshua sums to 74. And, you know, then I had the logical thoughts. Well, what's English equal? Oh, English equals 74. That's strange. Okay, how about Gematria? Okay, well, this is starting to make some sense. And it was at this point that I shared something like this on Facebook, and I said, what do you guys think about this? And almost nobody commented. And the people who did were mostly concerned for my well-being. They thought something was wrong with me, and I thought, well, okay, I guess they don't think it's as interesting as I do, but being someone who's familiar with statistics, this seems highly improbable. And also around the same time, I said, well, let's see what, something I'd always wondered about is where did the names of the states of the United States of America come from? And so I wrote out all 50 states, and I did them in both ciphers, because the other cipher I learned was the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And notice, like Gematria and English, they're the same in both, right? These are the ciphers I taught for years, in case you're newer here. The alphabetic order, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, up to Z, the 26 letters, 26. And then the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, which again, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4. Where it changes is when you get to J, the 10th letter, because 10 is a double-digit letter. You want to make each letter a single-digit number. So you take the numerology at 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. And you can just see that here. J becomes 1. K becomes 2. L becomes 3. Anyway, I mapped out all 50 states, and I noticed that only one of the 50 states summed to 74, and it was Oregon. And then I realized that Oregon was the 33rd state, and I said, the 33rd state, Oregon, the only that sums to 74. And I'd already had this realization about the Jesus and cross thing, and as most people understand, Jesus crucified on the cross at age 33. So I thought, there must be something about 74 and 33. There must be something greater about this number pairing. Why else would they make just the 33rd state out of all 50 states sum to 74 with the alphabetic order? And as we've learned in time, it seems to be a Masonic thing. This code's largely Masonic, Masonic 74, Masonry's 33. And something else I realized about the 50 states of the United States of America when I was in my earliest days trying to get this familiarity with Gematria, understanding it was a system of coding numbers into words and looking for relationships. What I thought was so interesting is that out of the 50 states, only 3 summed to 33. That was in the ciphers that I knew, the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. None summed to 33 with the alphabetic order. But with the alphabetic order and rules of numerology, Delaware, the first state, was 33. Massachusetts, the 6th state, was 33. And think about how the numerology of 33 is 3 plus 3 is 6. And the only other one was the 50th and final, so the beginning and the end. And I thought that can't be a coincidence. 33 states, the beginning and the end. And if you use all 4 of the base ciphers, there's only one other state that sums to 33. In reverse reduction, New York's also 33. But looking for further evidence and trying to dismiss coincidence, I also took the time to decode the date numerology of all 50 states. Delaware was established on a date with 33 numerology. And out of the first 13 colonies, 3 were established on dates with 33 numerology. Delaware, the first, Rhode Island, the last, and the only other was the 9th, New Hampshire. And while it wasn't the 6th like Massachusetts, it being the 9th, 6 and 9 are numbers that have a lot in common. They're the same shape, they're just upside down. And then the other thing is 9 has a mathematical relationship with 33. 3 times 3 is 9. So those were my earliest, investigations, and they started to form the basis of my understanding that there really was something significant to the code of the numbers behind the words. And from there on, after each day, I would just document and build more on my understanding. And then I began sharing it with a network of people. And, we've come to the point we're at now where we have a greater understanding of what a lot of these numbers mean, how they're used again and again ritualistically. So what is Gematria? Gematria, the ancient practice coding numbers into words. It's a spiritual practice. It's about grouping words with meaning and numerical overlap together. And that is most clearly explained through things such as English and Gematria. And, the example of Jesus, cross, Messiah, gospel, parables, and even the English translation of the name Joshua. Astronomical odds, practically 1 in a million for all of those things to have the same value, which shows that there's purpose behind it. It's not coincidence. So, Gematria. I think we understand what Gematria is. Kabbalah. Talk about this a lot. Kabbalah is where the significance of Gematria comes from. In the Book of Formation, which you can pick up. If you'd like to read the book of Amazon, I don't love to support Amazon, but I just want to show you how inexpensive the Book of Formation is. It is very inexpensive. It's a very short read. The price of this went up. That's funny. You know what's amazing? This used to be about $5 on Amazon, this book. When I got this book, it was about $5. Huh. And it's very short. I'm amazed that it's $15 now. This might possibly be, I'm not sure if it's the same. It could be different. I have this version right here. It used to be $5. Huh. Okay, well, it's $15. It's more than I thought. But the Book of Formation begins with how God created the world by merging the letter with the number with the word. And merging the letter with the number with the word. That's exactly what Gematria is. So the core belief of Kabbalah is this is how the world was created. And that's why in the beginning of Genesis, which we're going to talk about in the next session, God speaks the world into existence over numbered days. And as God creates the world, God says, and God said. We're going to look at that term, and God said, in light of Genesis. And what's so interesting about it? The tree of life. What is that? Let's bring it up on the screen. Let's bring up a physical model of the tree of life. Very easy to access. You know, Google, who I definitely don't love as a company, they do make things easy for us. They've brought convenience into our life. We don't want that tree of life. We want the Kabbalah tree of life. See if we can find an English version. I do have this in my book. Maybe I should just... So this is the tree of life. What it's supposed to be is a physical representation of God and, in a way, the anatomy of the human body. For example, this region right here represents the sexual part of us, and this represents the crown, the top. But the tree of life is this physical model for Kabbalah. And we'll get deeper on this in another session. But what's interesting in terms of Gematria about the tree of life, the physical model for Kabbalah within the English language, again, is best understood through the 4 base ciphers. The 2 that we covered are part of our 4 base ciphers, the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. The next part is the reverse alphabetic order and the reverse alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And through these 4 ciphers, you can see how all of this comes together. Kabbalah has the Gematria 52 when you turn the alphabetic order around and use the rules of numerology. Tree of Life has the Gematria 52 in that same cipher. The Jewish name for the Tree of Life is the Etzah Chaim, which is the same in that cipher. And so is Gematria, also 52. Remember, the term the Cabal comes from Kabbalah, and the Cabal is also 52. So that's another example. We're going to get more into the 4 base ciphers, but just understand the tree of life is the physical model of Kabbalah about spiritual ascension. And to reach the top, the crown, you have to master a lot of different parts of what is considered spiritual understanding as taught through Kabbalah. And one of those lessons, which I think is easily understood by a lot of us, is that you essentially cannot be over fixated on sex. If you're stuck on sex, you'll never be able to spiritually ascend. And I think that's a really key concept in light of the world we live in. Understanding that the people who rule over us, who control media and government and entertainment, understanding that they practice Kabbalah and they use this every single day, you can see how they've saturated this world in sex. And so many people are fixated on sex. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with sex. It's a healthy part of any adult life. But like anything, you know, there's balance. And when you overdo it with something, it creates problems. And, you know, imagine all the people online right now who are watching pornography and they're addicted to pornography and they're missing out on so many other things that are online that they could be experiencing, such as this knowledge or many other teachings online. So anyway, we'll cover the tree of life in greater detail in a future week, but just in case you weren't familiar with that, wanted to let you know about it. Now, what's Kundalini? Kundalini, old world spiritual belief. And perhaps in a future radio show, I'll be able to get a gentleman on. He's been corresponding with me through email. He is actually a Freemason, but he's really into what I'm teaching because I'm teaching about things he didn't know about. He says he's a master at this Kundalini, and he has incredible control over his body, and he can make all of his pores open up on command. And I find all this really interesting because I have no idea how to make anything like this happen, but he's letting me know that there is a lot of important things to Kundalini, and it really is a way of spiritually ascending. So for people who are into that, I would like to get that man on in the future, possibly on this educational program or my radio show, just to listen to him speak. He did come out and say that he is a Mason, but Kundalini, it is where Freemasonry's obsession comes with the number 33, because there are 33 bones in the human vertebrae, and the belief is that all spiritual work and all spiritual ascension is done up the human vertebrae. And again, in Gematria, in what is considered to be the most important cipher, according to authors who've written about this topic, such as Faith Giovanni, who wrote the Divine Triangle, such as Manly P. Hall, the Freemason who shared a little about this knowledge in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. They say it's this cipher right here, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. Remember, Masonry is 33. Secrecy is 33. Order is 33. The word people is 33. The word person is 33. And as we've talked about, even the word goyim is 33. And in terms of it being a spiritual number, and Masons such as Manly P. Hall saying that the Bible is based in these old world spiritual teachings that have been packaged into something new, as in the Holy Bible, it is interesting that when you flip the alphabetic order around and use the rules of numerology, Bible is 33. Good book has that gematria of 33. Sunday, gematria of 33. And just when you use the alphabetic order in terms of spiritual and 33, this was also one of my earliest discoveries. I always wondered where the word amen came from. And when I saw that it equaled 33, I thought that was so fascinating. And realized it was years later that I discovered this reverse cipher. But right away I saw the amen in 33, and I thought, Jesus on the cross of 33, spiritual, amen. What's it about? When I first started, I didn't know about this Kundalini. It was news to me. Learned about that later. So we're just establishing, what are these things? Where do they come from? I should also share about the word Kundalini in case you're not aware. Kundalini has the gematria 58 when you flip the alphabetic order around and use the rules of numerology. With the regular alphabetic order and rules of numerology, Freemasonry is 58, like secret society. Again, Freemasonry has many of its secrets in Solomon's Temple from the Old Testament. When you become a Mason, you have to pass 3 levels. You have to do a tracing board for each level. The tracing boards are in tribute to Solomon's Temple. They say that Freemasonry is based in the teachings of the Rosicrucians. So we can see these numbers, not arbitrary. Remember, the belief is that God created the world by merging the letter with the number. The 4-letter name of God from the Old Testament, which is known as the Tetragrammaton, it has the Hebrew gematria of 26, just like in English it's 26. And what's interesting is when you write out Tetragrammaton, it also has the value of 58. Again, the entire code is in tribute to God. And in Freemasonry, one of the qualifying things to be a Mason is that you have to believe in God. So we can start to see these numbers have meaning. And then just to talk about the numbers 5 and 8 for a moment. 5 in numerology has to do with creation. And think about your hand with the 5 fingers. Your hand gives you the ability to create. 8 has to do with the infinite. Think about God and infinite creation. And think about the Freemasons being builders. builders in service to God, or at least that's what it was supposed to be once upon a time. Seems that it's turned into something much different. Those of you who follow my work, I'm sure you're well aware of that. So the next piece, Hermeticism. What is Hermeticism? If you have not read my book, please do. As a member, if you've signed up for Gematria School, if you go to the bottom of all of the posts on the wall, you know what I'm going to do after class is over? I'm going to repost the book again for the $11 tier so you don't have to scroll through the bottom of the post. If you have not read the book yet and you've signed up for this class, you have already paid for the book because your $11 membership gets you the book. So I'm just going to link that post again in case you don't have it. But I want you to read the chapter I've done on Hermeticism. There's 7 Hermetic principles. And the one we're going to focus on tonight, again, is the rule of vibration, frequency. In Hermeticism, everything carries a vibration. And that means every number, every letter, every shape, every symbol, every color, everything carries a vibration, and that vibration has an influence on our behaviors. It dictates everything that happens around us. And while it might sound silly, and I got to admit, when I was first getting into this study and researching, some of the things I read about, I was just like, that sounds so silly. I mean, really? Could that be? Why would anybody come to that belief system? And I had to have my own realizations to go, well, wait a minute, maybe this isn't so silly. And again, when I first began, I've shared this example before, but I'm just going to share it again. When I first began and was learning about these things, I wanted to put it to the test. I opened up a numerology book at a Barnes & Noble that was still open by my house at the time, and it also shared this same cipher that's on the screen, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, and the author claimed that if you used this cipher to decode your name and the people in your life around you, you're going to start to see these relationships in numbers. And I thought, I wonder if that's true or if this is just something to sell books. And so, again, I put it to the test. I wrote out my full name. And I said, okay, my name equals 89. I don't know what that means. I wonder what my dad's name equals. So I typed in my dad's name. His full name's Timothy Stephen Hubbard. And I said, you got to be kidding me. The exact same number as me? And as soon as I saw that, it just clicked into my head right away. I said, my goodness, my mother is born on September 8th. The majority of the world writes that date 8/9. And I said, okay, I guess this is what that author was talking about. And so I did plug in my mom's name, and her name is not the same as ours. But what is interesting is Donna Jean Hubbard, her full name sums to 62, right? My father's and our names sum to 89. And in the study of numerology, you also break down the numbers into their single digit. 62 becomes 6 plus 2 is 8. 89, 8 plus 9 is 17. The numerology is 17 is 1 plus 7 is 8. So all of our names do break down to 8. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about this as well. My parents, they gave me a 19-letter name, and I was born at 19:19 p.m. on July 21st, 1983. And the thing about 19 is it's the 8th prime number. And in case you're new here, gematria.com, this calculator's your friend. If you come up to tools, if you go to calculator, it's going to load the 4 base ciphers for you. You want to play around with those ciphers, you go there. But if you want to learn about numbers, you come to number properties. And if you type in a number, it'll tell you things about that number. So if you type in 19, for example, it'll tell you, is it a Fibonacci number? No, it's not. It would say yes, it was. Is it a triangular number? No, it would say yes, just like how prime says yes. So 19 is the 8th prime number. And, just in case you missed what I showed before, what else is really interesting is my dad, if you take out his middle name, Timothy Hubbard, with this cipher, 67. July 21st, the day I was born, 67. Click on that number, you'll see that it's the 19th prime number, like father, like son. And what else is a trip is Donna Hubbard. When you flip the alphabetic order around and use the rules of numerology, is also 67. So I had never seen any numerology book or source recommend anything besides this cipher, the dark blue one. But perhaps this study, there's a lot more exploring and understanding to be made. That's the way the world is, right? People make discoveries, and through experimentation, you see if there's relevance. So to me, I see this topic as something we're all learning about together. I'm teaching you what I know, but there's just so much more to understand. So next piece, alchemy. When a lot of people hear the word alchemy, they think about turning lead into gold. And what alchemy is really about is improving your mental state. For example, if you were routinely depressed, it would be about working at solving that outside of pharmaceuticals. So we're going to get into alchemy and Hermeticism and all these things deeper in weeks ahead. But tonight, I just want you to have a concept of what these terms are. Alchemy is about improving states of consciousness. So before we move on, I want to go out to the chat, and I want to take a moment to see if anybody has any questions. It says 50 people are here now. My eyes are now on the chat, so I can see if anyone has any questions. Does anyone have any questions right now before we move on to section 2? And you can also say if you're enjoying this, or if I'm speaking too fast, or if there's anything you'd like me to do as we move along. Want to make sure that I'm communicating clearly. I don't see anyone posting anything in the chat, so I'm thinking we're A-okay to move on. Can you explain the name Tiger Woods and all the coincidences? Okay, so questions like that, let's save that for the end when we do the Q&A. I'm happy to answer the Tiger Woods question, but we'll save it for the end. Okay, it looks like everyone's satisfied. I wish more people were here, but Trisha has something. If numbers are exact match, is that good for us? Well, okay. The study's dualistic, right? So like somebody will come to me and they'll say, Zach, you're always talking about how 38 has to do with death, murder, killing. My name equals 38. Is that bad? And I'll say, no, because the study's dualistic. There's positive terms that equal 38 too. So I wouldn't necessarily say that anything's good or bad. I think it's more about just marveling at how these things work out. Like, for example, my parents had no idea what their numerical name values were. They thought this study, my dad's just kind of always like, when I talk about it, he's like, oh, that's interesting, but he'd rather just watch the baseball game or something. And for a while, my mom thought that maybe I'd lost my mind, but I think over time she started to say, oh, okay, this can't just all keep being coincidence. But she's not the most mathematical person, so this isn't something she takes to. And she likes to make her wreaths, as I've showed you guys. So she stays doing what she's doing. But I'm just making that point because even though that they had no understanding of any of this, just somehow all of this worked out organically. And that's what the numerology books speak to, that there's an organic side of this code. It has influence in our life. It brings the relationships that we have into our life, the experiences that we have. For example, I didn't even realize this until I moved here, but the town that I'm living in, when you flip the alphabetic order around, it sums to 89. And, it's been I haven't been here that long, but already a lot of strange things have happened. The FBI came to my door, falsely accused me of something. And then right when it seemed like maybe I was at the rock bottom of this study and doing this work, just like that, it was like a complete 180. And all of a sudden, it seemed like we were gaining ground faster than we ever had before. So, and I should also point out this, you guys, the word number equals 89, and numbers have always been my thing. And you might notice the number's 35 over here too. Zachary's 35. That's how old I am right now. And so anyway, 35 has that numerology at 8, like how all of our parents connected that way. So I'm still trying to decipher how relevant all of these ciphers are to our actual name. Because in the numerology books, it says that this is the one. The dark blue one is the one that matters. This is the one you use for your name. This is what's pure. And it does seem to be the most true cipher. But then again, I'm seeing things in the other ones, and I'm saying, well, is that a coincidence? I mean, it doesn't feel like it. Feels like there's something going on. So, wait, let me go back out to the questions real quick before we move ahead, just in case anybody else did want to ask something. And Tricia, I don't know if I completely answered your question the way you wanted, because you said, is that good for us? I guess what I'm saying is it could potentially be good. And we'll leave it there. Jane finally found it. Glad you made it here, Jane. I think a lot of people are learning how to enter this tonight. And after tonight's episode, I'm going to go out and put a tutorial so people know how to join this next week on time, which I should have done a better job of. But because I know a lot more people are signed up than the 52 people it says are here right now. Perhaps other people are planning to watch it later. Do we have to begin to read the book before we begin to understand Gematria? No, but if you read the book, you'll understand it a lot better. Tonight, I hope you're beginning to understand. That's the purpose of this lesson, and to really give you a foundation so that you feel strong and competent and can start to explain this to your friends and family if you want to. But if you read the book, yeah, absolutely, it's going to help you out. What Seth is saying about how the different numerical values carry different energies is what the Hermetic teaching is, that every number carries a different vibration, and these vibrations have influence. Perhaps that's why my parents came together, you know? Perhaps you guys understand what I'm saying, I believe. These things influence our behavior. A lot of people who've taken the time to decode the relationships they're in, they see how organically the numbers work out for their loved ones and the births of their children. And there's a lot of people over the years who've heard me teach about this and deciphered their own lives and shared with me that information. So I've gotten to see just how many people are having these experiences. Okay. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go back to the lesson. We're going to move on to part 2. Again, at the end of each section here, I'm going to come back and check on questions. And then remember, at the very end, we're going to have a big Q&A. So we're already 40 minutes into this. I'm taking a little bit longer than I meant to. But let's look at the Holy Bible and Genesis. And again, as I do this, you might have seen me do this before, but I want you guys to, again, get in the practice of doing these things too for your own research, assuming you want to do your own research. What's awesome about Gematrinator is you can put Hebrew words in here. And thanks to the age we live in, our favorite alphabet company, if you just type English to Hebrew, it will bring up a translator for you. And if you type in a word here, it will give you the Hebrew value. If you highlight that and do Control-C, or if you don't like shortcuts, if you just go up to Edit Copy, then you have the Hebrew value. Then you can come to gematrinator.com and you click on the ciphers. You come down to the foreign. And what Derek's done is he's taken the 4 most common Hebrew ciphers. He's taken the 4 most common Hebrew. There's many ciphers in Hebrew, but these are the 4 most common. If you type in or just paste in the Hebrew value. So if you click here and do Control-V or come up to Edit Paste, it'll paste the value. And then you can see what the Hebrew translation is. And notice the value of 137. That is the 33rd prime number. Remember, the physical model for the tree of life is supposed to resemble the human anatomy. And With regards to 107 being the 33rd prime, think about the 33 bones of the human vertebrae and how in English, in our most pure cipher, people's 33, persons 33. Society is also 33. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. Society's 33. I also think about how the spine is the center of the nervous system and how, in a way, humanity is like a giant nervous system. To follow my thought on that is, I'm sure you've had the experience where you have a good friend or your family member or your significant other, and sometimes you just get this feeling and you know something's up, and then you find out that, oh my goodness, this happened. And sometimes it's really good news, sometimes it's bad news, or sometimes you're going to the phone because you just sent something, and then that person you're thinking about, the phone rings and it's them. To me, this is that it's like that spiritual realm around us that we're all connected to, and that's also at the same time somewhat of a mystery. And consider, this Kabbalah study is part of the ancient mystery religions. So anyway, 137 is the 33rd prime. And Kabbalah says that God created the world by merging the letter with the number with the word. And in the beginning of Genesis, just in case you never read the Bible, let's just pull up Genesis 1. And this is the New International Version. By the way, NIV equals 45 like Holy Bible. But Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. God speaks the world into existence. Then as you go on, the days are numbered, what he does on each numbered day. The 6th day, the last day of creation, the 7th day, God rests. So, what does Genesis mean? It means in the beginning. That is the translation of Genesis. In the beginning, and with our alphabetic order, in the beginning sums to 137, right? Let's just get rid of our other ciphers over here for a moment, just so it doesn't look so cluttery. I don't know if it bothers you like it bothers me, but sometimes, whoops, I got rid of the wrong ciphers too. Sometimes I just like to look at less things on the screen. It just helps my eye focus and the information sink in. So here we have the alphabetic order. Here we have the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up another Gematria calculator with just Hebrew values. So we want those Hebrew values. Whoops, not all ciphers. Bear with me a moment here. We just want the Hebrew over here. Again, the Hebrew value of Kabbalah is 137. And I want you to notice that when you just take the alphabetic order, this cipher right here that says Hebrew Gematria is supposed to be the most true cipher. These ones, Hebrew reduction and Hebrew ordinal, are the alphabetic order with Hebrew, and then the alphabetic order with Hebrew and rules of numerology. The exact same as these two ciphers, right? And if you write out Kabbalah, notice Kabbalah's 38 in ordinal, just like in Hebrew it's 38 in ordinal. And think about what in the beginning was. It was 137 and 83. But remember, if this was Hebrew, the way we would read 83 is 38 because you read right to left. 83, 38, reflections of each other. And I didn't plan this, but today, October 9th, is the day leaving 83 days left in the year. And think about this. Gematria School is beginning today. I did not mean to do that, but I thought about that later. I said, it's kind of funny it worked out that way. So the other thing to notice is 137 and 38 in numerology. 1 plus 3 plus 7 is 11. 3 plus 8 is 11. And in reduction, Kabbalah equals 11 in Hebrew. 11 is the master number. Remember, the Bible, most Bibles are 66 books. And when you add 1 through 11 together, it equals 66. Revelation, just to make a point, has that gematria of 121 with the alphabetic order, which is a number that has a square root of 11, the 66th book of the Bible. And the first published Bibles were Gutenberg Bibles, which are 66 books in length. Now, what are the odds? The first published Bible, the Gutenberg Bible. 66. And of course, in Revelation, the final book, Jesus returns, right? You had 1 through 11, it equals 66. So we're going to go over all those triangular numbers, make sure we have all that straight at the end. So, Holy Bible and Genesis. In the beginning and Genesis in light of Kabbalah. I think we made that point clear. God speaking the world into existence over numbered days. I think that that's understood why that's significant. Let's also remind why it's very interesting that God rests on the 17th day. God has the gematria of 17 in the reduction cipher with the alphabetic order. Another name from God for the Old Testament is L. L with the alphabetic order 17. You know, we learn about the stories of Zeus here in the United States, the Greek god. The Greeks practiced this coding of letters and numbers. Zeus 17. Rest also 17. And 17 is the 7th prime number. God and rest 17. God rests on the 7th day. Think about the Freemasons with their logo with the capital G, where you have to believe in God to be a member. And the word Mason, 17. G is the 7th letter. I think you're connecting the dots. So let's come back here. Why does it say, and God said, before God makes his creation? Why is it continuously, and God said, and God said, and God said? Are those words arbitrary, or is there something behind them? Let's look. What's interesting about and God said? Notice the gematria of 78 with the alphabetic order. Genesis equals 78. And the most curious verse in Genesis is the 78th verse, which is Genesis 3:2:2. And let's just use my book real quick to make this point a little quicker. What's nice about my book being electronic files, you can use the search and you can type in key things and it'll pull up where these things are brought up in the book. So it's page 109, which is kind of funny because today's October 9th. But here it is right here. Genesis 3:2:2. What's really interesting about this verse, in the New International Version, it reads, and the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life. And remember, the tree of life is the physical representation of Kabbalah. From the tree of life and eat and live forever. The King James Version reads, and the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life, uses the same wording there, tree of life, and eat and live forever. Again, King James was a Freemason. He was a Rosicrucian. They're invested in this knowledge. They're very much aware of this code that existed many years before English existed. Now, what's a trip is taking these respective verses, the New International Version and the King James Version, they use different wording, but despite using different wording, they arrive at the same gematria value. And I'm just going to copy and paste this so we can verify it. This is an absolute fact. I want to pull up all 4 base ciphers here. Wait a minute. Hold on. Did I copy? I might have copied the wrong thing there. So you take the way that the New International Version presents that. And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. In the reverse reduction 3:2:2, right? Then you come back and you take the version from the King James, which has a different wording. But despite the different wording, and as I talk about in the book, if you haven't read it, both the New International Version and the King James Version, they're both coded out. So here's the King James way. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. Also 3:2:2. What is 322 again? Let me remind you in case you've forgotten. Ancient mystery religions. 322. What are the ancient mystery religions? They're all the things we covered in the beginning. They're Hermeticism, they're alchemy, they're Kundalini, they're Kabbalah. These are the ancient mystery religions. And again, in this verse, it talks about the tree of life. The other thing that's 322 is the Abrahamic religions in the same cipher. Abrahamic religions 322. And what are the Abrahamic religions? They're Judaism, Christianity, Islam, three faiths that are all connected to the Old Testament and all directly connected to Genesis, where this verse is written. And again, this verse 322 is the 78th verse, Genesis. Just as a point about 78, remember, Jesuit equals 78. The Masons within the Catholic Church. Again, the story is that after the Crusades, the Knights Templar secured this code, Cabala, and brought it back to the Catholic Church. And then the code slowly spread among elites in Europe. And then, as we know, slowly across the world. Jesuit, 78. We also know that the Scottish Rite, very big on this code, Scottish Rite has that Gematria 78. And think about the Masonic order at Yale, Skull and Bones, that identifies by the number 322. Isn't it something else? I mean, when I first found out this stuff, it just blew my mind. It just blew my mind all over the place. So you can just see how deliberate it is. I mean, what are the odds of all of this stuff being an accident, a coincidence? And again, there is a belief in Kabbalah that is expressed in this verse. There's some people that say you should not study Kabbalah. You are not meant to know this knowledge. This is God's knowledge. It's only supposed to be for God. Human beings are not supposed to have this information. And you see that in a lot of religious people. I mean, all the people who come across my work and say, oh, this is the devil's work. This is Satan's work. You're not supposed to touch this stuff. You're not supposed to know about this. You shouldn't even talk about it. In a way, it's like they've received that message and they're obeying it. And, you know, to me, it's not like I'm trying to ascend with Satan or do something evil. To me, what this began with was realizing that something was very dark and wrong in the world, and the elite were doing something by some sort of numerical code, which I had a vague idea of. And it just took lots of uncovering and researching and year after year working at things and taking the time to decode. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about right here. So it's not like I want to disobey the people who say and who put out the warnings about Kabbalah. To me, it's like, well, I just want to do this because something needs to be done in this world, because we're all living in a darker place than we need to be, because these tyrants are doing what they do every single day, creating the needless fear and division and hate, and it just does not need to be this way. So I had no idea when I started this study that there were these warnings not to touch this subject. Another verse I want to look at, Genesis 3:5. You know, this is another mind-blowing thing to me, something that really opened my eyes. I think you'll understand why I'm saying that after we read this verse. Genesis 3:5. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and or excuse me, I'm not reading Genesis 3:5, excuse me. 3:5 right here. For God knows that when you eat from it, referring to the fruit from the tree, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This is about, you know, the tree that you're not supposed to touch. You're not supposed to eat from. And is that the tree of life? Is that the knowledge of the tree of life? Again, let's read it one more time. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And this is Genesis 3:5, right? The God of the Old Testament is Elohim, which has this gematria of 35. In Hebrew, the name Elohim has gematria 47, another number that if you follow my work, you're very familiar with, but we're going to stick with the 35 for right now. Now, the other thing here is about the eyes, right? Again, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. When people think of eyes, they think of the eyes on the face. But again, the body has 3 eyes, the 2 on the face and the 1 in the mind. And with the alphabetic order, I want you to think about this. I, 3 letters, 3 eyes. Again, 2 on the face, 1 in the mind. The word I with the alphabetic order sums to 35, kind of like Genesis 3:5. And notice, E is the 5th letter. There's 2 E's in here, 5 and 5. And then there's the Y, which is the 25th letter. And the square root of 25 is 5. So all 3 of these letters have a relationship with 5. And the thing is, in numbers, 5 is the 3rd prime number. And as we're going to get to, prime numbers very important. They show strength because they cannot be divided. So there's this mathematical relationship with 3 and 5. There's this clear connection with eyes and Genesis 3:5, which again connects to the tree of life and Kabbalah. So I believe this is why the word I is what it is. And again, there's just so many little things in Genesis that by applying this code, you can go, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And we're just touching some of them tonight. Genesis 6:6 is another very interesting thing to consider. Let's look up Genesis 6:6. So in Genesis 6:6, it says, the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. God regrets making mankind in Genesis 6:6. And consider mankind's made on the 6th day. Again, just in case you've never heard me talk about this before, there's something really interesting about the word man in light of man being made on the 6th day. 6 is the first perfect number. The next perfect number is 28. And with the alphabetic order, man is 28. Man made on the 6th day. And if you write out the word number in our most pure cipher, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, number is 28. Notice number has 6 letters in it. N-U-M-B-E-R. 6 letters sums to 28. The first 2 perfect numbers encoded in the word, easily understood through the language of gematria. And if you don't know what perfect numbers are, they're the numbers that the divisors of the number sum to themselves. So here, the smallest perfect number is 6, which is the sum of 1, 2, and 3. The numbers that divide into 6, not counting 6 itself, are 1, 2, and 3. 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. Other perfect numbers are 28, 496, and 8,128. And then it just gets bigger and bigger. There's not a lot of perfect numbers. Understand they're rare. So what are the odds of the way the word number and the word man work out? 2 perfects. And don't forget, God makes mankind in the 26th verse of the Bible. God 26. The first man is Adam, as gematria 26. But mankind, God regrets making mankind in 6:6, Genesis 6:6. And why does that matter? The word mankind equals 66 with the alphabetic order. Number of a man has gematria of 66. The Bible, 66 books in length, unless we're talking about the Catholic Bible, which is 73 books, which is the 21st prime. And for the record, Bible also 21. And then also think about Revelation, where in the 66th book, you learn about the number of the beast, the number of a man. God starts to regret man because he sees that man's wicked. And think about this thing with Cabala and having this understanding, how it opens up the door to good and evil. It's like, what if we lived in a world where evil had never been introduced? I mean, it's hard to imagine because none of us have ever lived in that world. But how different things would be. So that is the conclusion of section 2. We're 1 hour into this teaching lesson. For those of you who showed up late, fear not. When this is over, you'll be able to start the video and watch from the beginning. So really, you won't have missed anything. That's the beauty of this. And these videos are going to remain up forever. As long as you're a member of this Patreon page, you'll always be able to go back and revisit these lessons. You're welcome to share them with friends and family. You just got to be able to log into your Patreon account. But let's go out to the questions. Okay. Zach is a 4, I believe. Maybe you guys were asking about my birth numerology. I am a 4, if that's what you were asking. Let's see. Anybody have any questions about section 2? So somebody says, when you say some word phrase has a gematria of, are you referring to any of the ciphers or a specific example, full reduction cipher? If this is answered in the book, let me know what I can read. So in the book, anytime I decipher a word, I let you know what cipher the value of the word is. It's not anywhere that I decode a word and leave you in mystery of, well, what cipher is that in? Throughout the book, every single calculation is explained what cipher that calculation's in. And when I'm making my videos and saying that word has a gematria of this, I'm always talking about the base ciphers. If I'm not talking about the base ciphers, I'll say in Jewish gematria or septenary or English extended. But also, just ask me that question. I use this term in the book, and when I speak, I often don't. There's actually a plural for the multiple numerical values of a word. So gematria is the singular. This word gematrio is the plural. And I just want you to see that with the alphabetic order, the plural is 108 and 45. That's the exact same as geometry. And remember, this study means geometry in language. So, you know, if I was speaking more appropriately, and I really should get in this practice, I wrote it correctly in the book, but then when I speak, I don't use it. If I'm going to say the gematrio of the word gematrio, it's 108, 45, 135, and 54 in the base ciphers. And let me know. I'm going to come back to the chat. Does it bother you when I don't clarify each time exactly what cipher I'm speaking of? Because I know that when I speak, I'll always say if it's outside of the base cipher, but I am aware that I'll just say this word has this value in gematria, and I will be speaking about any of the 4 base ciphers. I've heard about this book, The 12th Planet by Zecharia Sitchin, and I have not, but that is something I should pick up. A lot of people recommended that book to me. So I will look into that. Okay, Pete, I understand. You just want clarity because you're learning this. So yeah, it's a good question. And when you read the book, you'll see that every single calculation in that book, I tell you what cipher it is. Because with all these ciphers that we learn about, it can be really confusing if you don't clarify. And I say that to a lot of people who will use like every cipher and make a list of words, and they'll say, look, all these words sum to this. And I'll say, yeah, but you should label what cipher, because I mean, it's kind of cheating when you use every single cipher to make a list of things that relate together, you know. The religions don't want anyone to speak of G. Do you mean this study of gematria? So will I please number the pages of the book? I will number the pages of the book when it's in printed form. And if I do issue another electronic copy, I can add it too. But But in case you weren't aware, when you use your PDF reader, where's the book at? When you use the PDF reader, it tells you what page you're on, if you're not aware of that. So even though I didn't put the actual numbers on the pages, you should still be able to see what page you're on just using the reader. But yes, I'll do that in the future. That's fine. So was it my question? Welcome. Glad more of you are showing up and finding where this lesson's at. In future weeks, hopefully it's easier for you to find it here. I see that a lot of people are not here tonight, so I'm hoping they're going to watch it later. I'm going to do a tutorial video on YouTube so people know how to get into class next time. Sometimes things are tricky the first time. But okay, I think we've answered the majority of the questions that have to do with section 2, so let's move on. I'm moving slower than I planned to. I thought we'd be moving a little bit quicker along, but don't want to rush it. So let's do cipher practice. Let's talk about the 4 base ciphers and also learning how to calculate in your head. But before we do that, let's just go over them on the calculator, because anyone can access this calculator for free on your smartphone, on your computer, on your tablet. We're going to go to gematrianator.com. I'm sure you're familiar with the site. And again, let's just go through each cipher and the logical rules of how the 4 ciphers work together. So again, the dark green cipher on the far left is the alphabetic order. A is 1 up to Z is 26. The next cipher is the rules of numerology. The dark blue cipher, it's our most pure cipher. I always say this, if you could only take one of these 4 ciphers, this is the one you'd want to take. It will reveal the most. But then again, you want the full set to see the full picture. So the dark blue cipher, once you get to J, the 10th letter, it's not worth 10. It's the numerology of 10. It's 1 plus 0 is 1. K, the 11th letter, it's not 11. It's 1 plus 1 is 2. And L, the 12th letter, 1 plus 2 is 3. M, the 13th, 1 plus 3 is 4. You just do this all the way. You make each letter a single digit number. Then you add the word. Now, there are 3 things to know about the reduction cipher. And here, I'm just going to get rid of the other ciphers. This is what you need to know. We're going to start with K. There's something special about K, and the special quality comes from numerology. K is the 11th letter, and in numerology, you do not need to reduce 11. It's the master number. So K can be 11 or 2. So if you have a name like Karen in reduction is 22, but if you take into account the master numerology of K, Karen's 31. I hope that's clear. The other letter that has master numerology is V. V is the 22nd letter. So if you break down 22, it becomes 4. But if you preserve its master numerology, it remains as 22. In case you're new to numerology, I'm just going to get rid of this for a second. Let's say you had a number like, let me think for a second. You had a number like 137, right? In numerology, the numerology of 137 is 1 plus 3 plus 7 is 11. So you have the option to stop right there. You can just say, okay, we're stopping at 11, or you can take it a step further and go, okay, the numerology of 11 is 1 plus 1 is 2. If you have a number that breaks down to 22, so like 994, you would go 9 plus 9 plus 4 is 22. And then you could say, okay, this number has a numerology of 22, or you could take it a step further and take it down to 4. So if a word has a V in it, like Victor, Victor is 33, but you can also take into account the master numerology of V, which means you're going to add plus 18 more, right? Because V's 4 here it's 22. When you learn to do these ciphers in your head, you can also learn to make these simple exception calculations. Like if you get to the point where you can do Victor in your head as a single digit, you go, okay, Victor's 33, you calculate in your head, you go, but there's also a V in here, which means I can add 18 more. So just 33 plus 18, 51. So those are the numerology rules, right? Now there's another gematria related rule. The 19th letter. The 19th letter is S. And 19 is the only letter you have to reduce 2 times. 19 in numerology is 1 plus 9 is 10. I'll just bring this up here just so you can see S is 19. 1 plus 9 is 10. And then you can break it down one more time. 1 plus 0 is 1. So that is why the 19th letter can be 1 or 10, which means if you have a word such as Susan, well, here, maybe I'll just do one with one S at first, just so it's not as confusing. In reduction, Sam becomes 6, right? But because there's an S in it, you can make the S 10, which is plus 9 more. So Sam is 15. You know, if you have 2 S's like Susan, that means you would add plus 9 more for each S. So Susan's 11 in reduction. If you count S as 10, Susan becomes 29. But notice, it never changes the numerology of the full breakdown. It's never going to change the mathematical numerology breakdown when you take into account these exceptions. 29 in numerology is 2 plus 9 is 11. 11 is 11. 74 is 7 plus 4 is 11. So the exceptions for the K, the V, the S, they're never going to change the overall numerology of the word. They're just going to change the calculation sequence. K11, S19, V22. And what's appropriate is if a word has a K and a V in it, like Kevin, you should do the master. If you're going to choose to do the master numerology, you should do it for both. You shouldn't just do the master numerology K and not do the V. You should do it for both if you're going to take into account the K and V exceptions, as I call them. So I hope that's clear. Now, coming back to the 4 base ciphers, let's get them all back up here. Whoops. The next cipher is the reverse alphabetic order. So Z is 1. Back to A is 26. You know, when we put in A, we see that it's the biggest number. And the last cipher is the reverse alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And let me just get up the reverse cipher here with the rules of numerology. The 4-letter name of God. The 4-letter name of God in reverse reduction is 8. But notice, there's 2 H's. And when you flip the alphabetic order around, H becomes the 19th letter. So that means the exceptions can be used for H, just like they are for S with the normal alphabetic order. And when you do that, the 4-letter name of God becomes 26, just like how in Hebrew, the 4-letter name of God is 26. And I want you to think about this. What you're doing here is you're making the H is worth 10, right? The 4-letter name of God in Hebrew begins with the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is pronounced Yod, Y-O-D, not unlike God. Sounds just like God. Yod, God. To me, I see this as a really clever tribute within the English language to Hebrew and to that 10th letter Yod. Let's bring back all 4 base ciphers without the exceptions again. Remember, when you write God, you get all of these outputs. 26, we know why that matters. In Hebrew, the 4-letter name of God sums to 26. 26-letter alphabet. God created the world by merging the letter with the number. The word letter in our most important base cipher, 26. But coming back to God. God 17. We know why. L 17. Zeus 17. 17 is the 7th prime. 7 in numerology means divine completion. God created the world in 7 days, resting on the 7th day. How about over here? Now we flip the alphabetic order around. What's significant about 55? 55 is a very special number. It is the 10th triangular number, meaning if you add 1 through 10 together, it equals 55. 55 is also the 10th Fibonacci number, and the Fibonacci numbers are said to be the numbers of God. Fibonacci numbers, they're connected to the golden ratio, 5. The mathematics of the Fibonacci sequence in phi, they show up in our handprint, in the spiral of a seashell, in the shape of the galaxy. So many different things that naturally occur in this world. That's why they're considered to be the numbers of God. This is part of where that belief of God being the master mathematician comes from, that this very special mathematical ratio and relationship shows up in so many things, living and unliving, the things of this world, a leaf, so many different things, a ram's horn. So God 55, God breaks down to 10. Again, in Hebrew, the 10th letter is the first letter of the name of God, Yah. Also, notice that God is just 10 when you flip the alphabetic order around and use the rules of numerology. The other thing that you should understand is the number 1 in numerology is also used to explain the symbolism of God. And the reason that is because 1 is the only number out of all numbers that divides into all other numbers. That means 1 can be found in all things. Just like a spiritual person will tell you that God is in all things. God is in all of creation, just like the number 1 is in all things. 55 and 10 both break down to 1 in numerology. In numerology, there's also a belief that if you put a 0 at the end of any number, so 1, you put a 0 at the end, it becomes 10. 2, you put a 0 at the end, it becomes 20. 3, 30, so on. If you put a 0 at the end of the number, it adds this extra divine power. So 1 already symbolizes God. You put the 0 behind it, it's like you're emphasizing that power. And again, I want you to think about that in light of the 4-letter name of God, where the first letter in that name is the 10th letter from the Hebrew alphabet, Yod. And at the same time, I want you to think about the dualistic nature of this study. Satan, with the alphabetic order, is 55 and 10. Duality. Satan doesn't have the 26 and 17 connection, though. The other thing I want you to think about is this. If you write numerology, in our most pure cipher, it's 55. Again, you add 1 through 10 together, it equals 55. In numerology, 5 plus 5 breaks down to 10. And then again, 10 breaks down to 1 plus 0 was 1. Also, Fibonacci, in our reverse reduction cipher, is 55. What are the odds? What are the odds? The 10th Fibonacci number is 55, which is amazing to think about. The 5th Fibonacci number is 5 also, which is also interesting. We'll talk more about the Fibonacci numbers in a moment. So the other point I want to make, here's something to think about. We'll just start with a 2-letter word. And we're going to get rid of the reduction ciphers. They're just little tricks I want to teach you about the 4 base ciphers. We'll do a 2-letter word. We'll do as. So as with the alphabetic order equals 20, in the reverse alphabetic order equals 34. And there's a formula. If you can decipher what a word sums to with just the ordinal value and you don't have the reverse ordinal value, there's a mathematical proof that you can do that will automatically tell you what the word's going to sum to in reverse. So this is how this works. Let me do a different word since we already saw. Let's just do of. So of is the 15th letter plus the 6th letter, 21. We want to know what of is going to equal in reverse. This is how we know without even seeing the cipher. You take the number of letters in the word. So we have 2 letters here, and you multiply 27 times the number of letters in the word. So 27 times 2 letters is 54. Now with that 54, you subtract the 21. 54 minus 21 is 33. If you can do that kind of math in your head, then you can make these calculations. Watch what happens when I put in reverse ordinal. Of is going to be 33. Okay? So let's just do a 3-letter word. Let's axe. Axe is 1 plus 24 plus 5, 30. Now, what's our formula? We need to take 27 times the number of letters in the word. So 27 times 3 is 81. And 81 minus 30 is 51. That means when we do reverse ordinal, the value is going to be 51. And it is. Okay? 4-letter word. Same thing here. Let's do a 4-letter word. 4, like we're on the golf course, and I have to yell this out a lot when I play golf. Like, I haven't been able to afford to play golf much because it's an expensive sport, and I'm definitely not the best, and I'm always giving other people on the course a scare here and there. Makes me feel bad. But anyway, 4. With the alphabetic order, 4 is 44. And isn't that kind of funny? You could kill somebody with a golf ball. Anyway, what's our formula? 27 times 4, which is 108. We're going to subtract 44 from 108. What's that give us? 64, correct? Am I mistaken? I don't believe so. So do you see how this formula works? And it would be the same thing with the reverse alphabetic order. If you were doing it in reverse, you would do the same calculation to find the ordinal value. This is why things like Negro, slave, blues are the same forwards and backwards, because they all have the same ordinal value and they all have the same amount of letters. Again, somebody asked about tiger earlier. Tiger, 59 and 76. Woods, the other way around, is 59 and 76. Not arbitrary that the Million Man March was on the day leaving 76 days left in the year that Motown came out in 59, as I've said many times. So that's a trick with the alphabetic order and the reverse alphabetic order. If you can solve the word with the alphabetic order in your head, you can figure out the reverse alphabetic order with that mathematical formula. 27 times the letter placement, times the amount of letters, and then subtracting the value of the word you have before you. That'll give you what the reverse formula is. And realize it works the same with a single digit letter. Like, for example, if you know J is the 10th letter, then you're taking 27 minus 10, J is 17, right? Somebody once said, I don't understand why we're using subtract 27. Well, imagine if you subtracted from 26. What would Z, the 26th letter, minus 26 be? It would make Z worth 1. That's why you have to subtract from 27. Z, 27 minus 26, it gives you 1, the reverse alphabetic order placement. So I'm imagining that's clear. I'm hoping that I explained that clearly enough. Assuming I have, we're going to go to the reduction ciphers now and talk about the trick here. It's pretty much the same thing. In reduction, we're working with the numbers 1 through 9, right? So if I put in A, we know that A is worth 1 in reduction. The two values of the reduction and the reverse reduction, they have to break down to a numerology of 9. So if this is 1, this has to be 8, okay? 1, 8. They're always going to be 9. If B is 2, then we know that the next one has to be 7. 2 plus 7 is 9, right? If we know that C is 3, then this has to be 6. 3 plus 6 is 9. So what's D? D is going to be 4 and, of course, 5, right? Now look, the one thing that might confuse you is this. And what's really interesting, the way the alphabet works out, is that I is 9 both ways. So is R. They're the only letters that break down to I, or 9. I and R. If you're a sports fan, I'm sure you know about the IR, the injured reserve. It's a good way to remember these letters. But look, this still fits our formula. 9 plus 9 is what? 18, and the numerology of 18 is 9. So we still get the breakdown to 9. And this is also why any word that has a numerology of 9 will have a numerology of 9 both ways, always. There's no exception to that. Any word that breaks down to 9, and in fact, in all ciphers, it will always be all 9s in the base cipher. If a word is 9 in any one cipher, it's going to have a 9 numerology in the rest. Are you following me? 8 plus 1's 9, 2 plus 7's 9, 8 plus 1's 9. Understand? If it breaks down to 9 in one cipher, it breaks down to 9 in all, always. And at the same time, if a word breaks down to okay, let me get rid of it. Let me just start over here and get rid of the reverse just to build up a point. Like I talked about earlier, with the alphabetic order and the reverse alphabetic order, a word, it's going to break down to the same numerology always in both ciphers. So the name Adam, it's 19. In this cipher, 1 plus 9 is 10. 1 plus 0 was 1. In this cipher, it's 10. 1 plus 0 was 1. Breaks down to 1 in both. Any word is going to be the same. Sue breaks down to 9 in both. Any word, there's no exceptions here. Mom breaks down to 5 in both. Because they both break down to 5, what do you think that means about the value of mom in the reverse ciphers? It's going to be a number that breaks down to what? If these both break down to 5, what are they both going to break down to in the reverse cipher? You might not have the answer yet, but you're going to catch on if you don't. I'm going to tell you right now, they're both going to break down to a number that's 4, because 4 plus 5 is 9. It's always going to come back to 9 from the reverse and the ordinal. Understand? So let's just do mom in reverse, and we're going to see that it's numbers that breaks down to 4 for both. And it's the same thing with reverse. These two ciphers are always going to produce values that break down to the same numerology. So mom's 40 and 13 over here, 4 and 4. With the regular order, they both break down to 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. Okay? I hope I'm explaining that clearly enough. Everything's going to come back to 9. I wanted to do something besides 5 and 4. Oh my goodness, I'm just going to 5 and 4 words. What's wrong with me? Oh my goodness. So here's a different one. Loan. Loan breaks down to 1 with our regular order ciphers, right? 1 and 1. With our reverse ciphers, words that break down to 8 and 8, and 1 plus 8 is 9. It always comes back to 9. Remember, 9 is the glue in numerology. Any number multiplied times 9 will take on a numerology of 9. For example, 1 has a numerology of 1. You multiply it times 9, it becomes 9, right? 2 has a numerology of 2. You multiply it by 9, it becomes 18. 18 is 1 plus 8 is 9. Any number multiplied by 9, and I mean any number. You could go to infinity if you need to prove it to yourself. Any number multiplied by 9 will take on a numerology of 9. Another thing, any number that has plus 9 added to it will remain its numerology. So 1 has a numerology of 1, plus 9 is 10. The numerology of 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. 2 has a numerology of 2. You add 9, it becomes 11. 11 breaks down to 1 plus 1 is 2. 3 has a numerology of 3 plus 9, it becomes 12. 12 is 1 plus 2 is 3. 20. 21 has a numerology of 3. You add plus 9, it becomes 30. 30 also breaks down to 3. Are you following what I'm saying? 9 is this really special number. And if you've never seen me do the 9s trick with my fingers, maybe we'll do it at the end tonight, or maybe I'll save it for another week, just in case you don't know that. You can also just look it up online, the 9s trick with your fingers. If you just do a web search for that, I'm sure there's a YouTube video. I used to have one on my old channel. But 9's this really amazing number, and it is in part why Pythagoras, who's supposed to be the father in numerology, again, the Greeks took things that came before them, so he's probably really not. And some people say Pythagoras might not have even really existed. But Pythagoras supposedly believed that 9 was God because of all of its amazing properties. And don't forget, Holy Bible with the alphabetic order. Actually, with all the ciphers, breaks down to 9, right? But with the alphabetic order and rules of numerology and the reverse alphabetic order and rules of numerology, Holy Bible is 45. 45 is the 9th triangular number. When you add 1 through 9, it equals 45. And don't forget, Major League, Major League Baseball. Major League 45, 9 innings in a baseball game. And just in case somehow you never heard me talk about this before, Holy Bible 153, just like the miraculous catch of 153 fish, that's the 17th triangular number. Earlier we learned about God in 17. So those are some tricks to learn. If you learn the alphabetic order, every single letter A to Z, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, up to Z is 26. If you learn that order by using the tricks that we just applied, you can figure out every cipher in your head. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen with practice and repetition and use of the code. So we did our 4 base ciphers. We talked about how you can calculate in your head the tricks to figure out the other ciphers without, well, I guess you have to do a little bit of math, but without having to calculate the value of each letter, kind of a shorthand way of doing it. We've stuck to the base ciphers tonight. I just want to show you some cool things about the other ciphers real quick. We talked about how Genesis means in the beginning, and in the beginning sums to 137, like how Kabbalah in Hebrew is 37. There's a film out there called Gematria. It's a short film. It's a half hour. It's not the most exciting film. At the very end, a man comes out of nowhere and he explains that this code is used by a world elite to communicate secret messages. But that film, Gematria, the only cipher that they show in the film is Jewish Gematria. And I just want you to see what the word garden equals in Jewish Gematria. And I want you to think about the Garden of Eden. What are the odds? The Garden of Eden. Garden 137. So Jewish Gematria, very important cipher. When I first began this study, the first 2 ciphers I learned about were the alphabetic order, the rules of numerology, and then the next cipher I learned was this Jewish Gematria, even before I learned the reverse. Another cool cipher, found this one through the website called Riding the Beast. Kind of a scary name in a way, but they had this cipher on there, and something that's really cool about this cipher is the word religion equals 260, which is like God, 26 with a 0 at the end. The New Testament of the Bible is 260 chapters, and absolutely not by accident. Not in the slightest. Another cipher. The first 2 ciphers I learned were the alphabetic order, rules of numerology, then Jewish Gematria. The next cipher I learned was English Sumerian, which is multiplying the alphabetic order times 6. So if A is 1, then in Sumerian it's 6, because you're multiplying whatever the value is times 6. And what was really cool is I realized that Christianity summed to 930, and in Bibles that are 66 books in length, the 930th chapter is exactly where the Christian section begins. Christianity, 930. And don't forget that God's Son equals 93. Again, 930 is with a 0 at the end, which makes the number more divine. Nazareth is 93, where Jesus Christ is supposedly born. And crucifix equals 93. And the belief is that Jesus was crucified between the time of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So many years ago, modern science came out and they said that they figured out that the day Jesus Christ was crucified on our current calendar was April 3rd, which is the 93rd day of the year. And April 3rd is also /3, like 43, like how Jesus Christ is 43 in our most pure cipher. So those ciphers I definitely recommend experimenting with. A lot of very interesting things. If for all of you that like your rap music, I remember when I was doing the study, 1 million people were asking me, they're like, how come Jay-Z named his album 444? And I said, well, no doubt it had at least something to do with this. Rapper 74 with the alphabetic order, when you multiply times 6, is 444. Jay-Z is also a Mason, Masonic. Anything that's 74 is going to work out to 444 in that Sumerian cipher times 6. So we'll go more on other ciphers as we do future lessons. There'll be nights where we focus on ciphers and unplug a lot of really cool things about them. But tonight, just a little taste. We're getting near the 8 o'clock mark, and I imagine some of you are on the East Coast and you probably don't want to stay up too late. So let's make sure we get through all this. Actually, hold on. Before I go on to the next section, let me do what I'm supposed to do. Go out and make sure nobody has any questions. Anyone have any questions about what we just covered there in section 3? I'm looking at the chat. Oh, so somebody said, what is English extended? So English extended gematria. Here, what's cool on Gematrinator, when you go to a cipher, or hold on. When you go to a cipher, oh, shoot. Oh, just right here. So Derek has the cipher so you can see it. So this cipher, A through I is 9, J is 10. Then when you get to K, it's 20, L 30, M 40. What this cipher is like is if you look up Greek isopsophy, also some of the Hebrew ciphers, this is how they work. It's 1 through 9, and then it counts by tens. Then when you get to 90, notice what happens. You get to S and it's 100, and then you count by the hundreds. This is exactly how the Greek isopsophy cipher is. So this cipher right here is in tribute to the primary cipher system for Greek, because this is how their alphabet was arranged with the numerical sequence. 1 through 9, 10 through 90, 100 through 900. And works out a little bit different for English, but this system pays tribute to that way of decoding. So it's not just an arbitrary cipher, it's based in something that came before it. And there's also a cipher like that for Hebrew as well. So that's what's really cool about Gematria. It makes a lot of things easy. Any cipher that you use, if you click the cipher, you see how like you get above it and you click it, then down below here, it shows you the chart for how the cipher works. And again, that's everyone. So you want to know like how Jewish works, you come to Jewish, you click that. And then here you have the Jewish chart. And you see how similar the Jewish chart is to the English extended? It goes 1 through 9, then it goes 10, 20, 30, 40, but it arranges the letters in a little bit different sequence. You notice how J's up here is 600? So these are the differences between the ciphers. The Jewish gematria, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to pay tribute to the older arrangement of the English alphabet based in Latin, which was also a numerical alphabet. So those are the differences. Good question. I should have covered that myself, so thank you. Great question. Okay, make sure I'm not missing any questions here. I see you guys are talking a lot about 4. 4 is a very special number. It's not arbitrary that the 4th book of the Bible is called Numbers. 4 has a lot to do with foundation. And, you know, many mathematicians will tell you that numbers are the foundation of this world. Everything is mathematical. 3:35 a.m. My goodness, I appreciate you staying up this late. Wish we could do something to help you out there. I'm glad you're appreciating this more than real estate finance. Let's see. Got to speed it up for our people overseas. That's already, the sun's about to rise. Let's see. Making sure I'm not missing any questions. Show them the relationship of August and summer in the base ciphers. I love that one. And notice 89 and newborn in the summer. Okay. So Holly likes the August and summer example. Here, let me just make sure we got the base ciphers up here. Summer, August. And, oh, you know what? It's because I got here. Let me do it again with less things up. Summer, August. Typically the hottest month in summer. Notice overlap in 3 of the 4 base ciphers. And notice also that August is 17 in this cipher, and there's 1 S, right? So if you wanted to take into account the S exception, adding +9 more, August does also have a numerical value of 26. And because summer has an S as well, summer would also be 35 in that S exception cipher. But you can get the overlap with the 26 using the numerology-based rules within the cipher. So yeah, there's many words that have logical meaning have a lot of overlap in these ciphers. Again, here we are in October, witch and broom. You know, I remember when I first saw that, I said, you got to be kidding me. Perfect overlap in all four. You know, gavel, judge, perfect overlap in all four. You know, the glory and the power, glory, power, perfect overlap in all four. So let's see here. Glad you can sleep in. Okay. All right, let's move on to the last section here of the teaching. I wanted to well, let's do this quicker. This shouldn't take too long. Prime numbers. Prime numbers are the numbers that can only be divided by one in themselves. And, you know, the prime number relationship that we talk about so often is 137 and 33. Again, Genesis means in the beginning. Sums to 137, like Kabbalah in Hebrew, it's the 33rd prime. Genesis equals 33. They say that the holy text of Freemasonry is morals and dogma. Morals and dogma with the alphabetic order 137, the 33rd prime. In our reduction cipher using the alphabet, Masonry 33, secrecy 33, order 33, federal 33, the statue of morals and dogma in Albert Pike in DC, the federal land. The same land that has the house of the temple, the building with the 33 pillars on the outside, each 33 feet tall. Another prime number relationship that we talk about an awful lot is 17 and 7, like how God and rest are both 17. 17 is the 7th prime. So the prime number relationships I recommend remembering are 17 and 7. Another one is 41 and 3. 41 is the 13th prime. USA with the alphabetic order. USA is 41. The USA began with 13 colonies, 13 stripes on the flag. These are ones that get, you just see them a lot in this study. You see, oh, okay, they coded a 41 here and a 13 there. They coded a 137 here, a 33 there, a 17 here, a 7 there. And really try to learn all the prime number relationships because they are all important. But just tonight, I'm just trying to, again, remind you what prime numbers are and some ones to look out for because you'll see them a lot. Speaking of Albert Pike and morals and dogma, just to make a point, let me pull back up the calculator here. Albert Pike's statue is exactly 13 blocks from the White House. And notice the name Pike is 41, the 13th prime. And again, Gematria, if you type in a word and the number comes up, you can click on it and it'll tell you about that number. Or you can go to tools and go to number properties and punch in the number and it'll tell you all about it. Another good prime is 37. It's the 12th prime. Once upon a time, I told people why there was going to be a triple crown and it was going to be the 12th triple crown winner all time, 37 years since the last. That was American Pharaoh. By the way, American equals 37 in our most pure cipher. But again, all of the prime ciphers matter. They are not prime ciphers. All of the prime number relationships matter. And the more you know, the more you'll recognize how routinely they're used. But again, just from doing decoding, I know that they use 137 and 33 all the time. The other year, there was a story in Cleveland where the police shot 137 shots at a homeless couple in a car. You might remember this story. I know Holly in the chat does. Look at the word Cleveland 33. Homeless is 33. Police is 33. The police fired 137 shots at a homeless couple. And I wish I remembered the names of the victims. I think at least one of them had name gematria at 33 too. But again, you learn the prime number relationships. You see how often they're paired together in these stories. So, next note, triangular numbers. What are those? Triangular numbers are like how Holy Bible sums to 45. Holy Bible has 9 letters in it. You add 1 through 9 together, it equals 45. We talked about how Holy Bible also sums to 153. If you add 1 through 17 together, it equals 153. Another triangular number relationship really worth remembering is 666 is the 36th triangular number. If you add 1 through 36, it equals 666. I just talked about how they did these rituals with 666 and 36 with the wedding of George W. Bush's daughter this weekend and the confirmation of Kavanaugh in connection to Chief Justice John Roberts' birthday, the head of the Supreme Court. That's a relationship you'll see used again and again. 36 and 666. 91 and 13. 91's the 13th triangular number. So triangular numbers. Again, you can access them on gematrianeer.com. You type in a number, it'll tell you if it's a triangular number. Yes, it is. Another big one's 351. That's the 26th triangular number. If you type in Major League Baseball, you'll see that it has gematria of 351, which is the 26th. Game has that gematria of 26. We call baseball a ball game. Got that gematria of 26. Don't take me out to the ball game. They like to sing that at Major League Baseball stadiums. Who knew? Who knew what was behind the words? Now, Fibonacci numbers. Really important to know. Learn this sequence. This is the way Fibonacci numbers work. I'm just going to count them out 1 to 55, and then I'm going to do it again, breaking it down. I just want to see if you can catch the pattern. I'm going to try to go slow. I just want you to listen and see if you pick up on the pattern as I do it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55. Did you notice, or did it just seem like I was shouting out arbitrary numbers? Here, I'm going to write them on the paper to make it more visual. 1, 1, 2. What's the pattern so far? 1 plus 1 is 2. The next number is 3. So how did I get 3? I added the 2 numbers that came before it. 1 plus 2 is 3. What am I going to do for the next number? I'm going to add the 2 numbers that came before it. 2 plus 3 is 5. So what's next? 3 plus 5 is 8. Then what? 5 plus 8 is 13. Then what? 8 plus 13 is 21. 13 plus 21 is 34. 21 plus 34 is 55, which is the 10th Fibonacci number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, 55 breaks down to 10 in numerology. In Gematria, Fibonacci equals 55. 55 is also the 10th triangular number. Look, triangular is easier, right? You're just adding the numbers in order. We add 1 through 10 together, it's 55. Isn't that really interesting how it works out in both sequences? And again, numerology equals 55. Fibonacci equals 55 in Gematria. How could it be a coincidence? It couldn't be. So what number comes next in the Fibonacci sequence? 34 plus 55 is 89, and that's a big one. 89 is the 11th Fibonacci number. I want you to think about the gospel, the story of Jesus. If you're not aware, it's 89 chapters. With the alphabetic order, religion equals 89. Remember, the word number equals 89. The master number is what? It's 11. Jesus is 11. And 89 is the 11th Fibonacci number. Let's come back one more time. What number comes after 89? 55 plus 89 is 144. And what's so cool about that? 144 is the 12th Fibonacci number. What's the square root of 144? 12 times 12 is 144. Remember, in Jewish gematria, the word time is 144. And how many minutes are in every single day? 1,440. 1,440. Lose the 0 from the end, you got the digits 144. How many hours in the morning? 12. How many hours in the evening? 12. How many months in the year? 12. The square root of 144 is 12. It's a number that has a lot to do with time. And if you've never seen Back to the Future, they time travel at 88 miles per hour. What is it about 88? 88 is 4 circles. Each circle has 360 degrees. 360 degrees times 4 is 1,440 degrees of measurement, like 1,440 minutes in a day. And how do we dictate time? With the light of the sun, is it not? The word light in this same cipher is 144. So I'm not an expert here, but there's another spiritual study. It has to do with 144, and the term is nadis. But I'm going to skip that for now. We're just going to stick with time and light because that's more easily understood. And we're running short on time. Okay, it's baseball season. Again, I just love this example. It's so simple. If you know a baseball fan out there, sorry to my friend in the UK, you guys probably aren't as big on your baseball, but here in the States, it's just such a powerful example. It's one that just blows people's minds. You can introduce all 4 ciphers through this word. But the alphabetic order, baseball's 54. There's 54 outs in a complete game. 54. The next cipher, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. Baseball is 18. Now, what's cool about that? There's 18 half innings. Of course, both of these numbers break down to 9 in numerology, like 9 innings. A lot of people know about Roger Maris hitting 61 home runs, setting a record at the time in the year 61. 61 and 61. And if you go back and look at the highlight, the pitcher was number 39 and the catcher was number 22. So the guys throwing and catching the ball, their jerseys summed to 61 when Maris hit number 61. Maris played for New York. I'm sure you know everything in New York's 39. If not, we'll cover that in another week, but it is. 61 is the 18th prime number. So what a great baseball record in 61. 61 home runs in 61. You got the pitcher-catcher combo 61. And then lo and behold, it's the 18th prime, which brings us back to baseball. When you flip the alphabetic order around, baseball is 162, like how many games there are in a Major League Baseball season. And then when you flip the alphabetic order around and use the rules of numerology, baseball is also 54. 54. Again, it's rather rare that in the base ciphers, you'll get 2 values that have the same numerical output. And it will only happen if their numbers breaking down to 9. I believe that's true. Yeah, that is true. Well, okay. The only I'm just thinking for a second here, real quick. I'm thinking of an example where I guess if a word has all single-digit letters in it, like a name like Heidi, for example. Heidi will have the same in 2 of the base ciphers because none of them escape the single-digit numbers. So I guess they don't all have to break down to 9, but typically it is the case. You know, words that have matching values in 2 of the 4 base ciphers. It's almost always a 9 number. The only exception will be when it's, again, a word where all the letters are single-digit numbers. That's the only time it'll be a word that doesn't break down to 9. So hopefully I made that clear enough. Oh, yeah, and one more thing about the baseball example. If you write out Major League Baseball with the alphabetic order, it's also 162, just like how baseball alone is 162, the number of games in a season. We talked about the 351, which is the 26th triangular number, like game and ball game. All these numbers break down to 9. The other year, we saw the great baseball player Roy Halladay crash in a plane crash off the coast of Holiday, Florida on November 7th, 11/7, the day leaving 54 days left in the year. That's interesting. With regards to this 63, June 3rd is the 154th day of the year, and double day equals 154. He's the Freemason credited with American baseball. The old baseball schedule used to be 154 games. June 3rd, the 154th day of the year. 2 years ago, on June 3rd, the 154th day, a new record was set for the most grand slams in a single day. So, little baseball knowledge there. And don't forget also that Major League alone is 108. There's 108 double stitches on a baseball, a clear tribute to geometry. Remember, gematria means geometry in language, and the significance of the word geometry summing to 108 is that they say that from the earth to the sun is the diameter of 108 suns, and the diameter of the sun is 108 earths. They also say that from the earth to the moon is the diameter of 108 moons. Number shows up in all sorts of things, prayer beads, yoga sun salutations, special number there. And again, with regards to geometry and the number 108, think about how 1's a line, 0's a circle, and 8 is essentially 2 circles. Anyone who's taken geometry class remembers graphing lines, measuring circles endlessly. The number itself expresses the majority of what you did in the class. Geometry also breaks down to 45, the 9th triangular number. All values break down to 9. 9 is the glue in this study. 666, the 36th triangular number, the biblical riddle about 666. Special mathematical number. Okay, I wanted to decode a news story or a sports game live. Since we're running late on time and we're already at 8 o'clock, I'm just going to combine that in with the question and answer. I'm going to see what questions you have and what news story you'd like to look at right now. And consider this the end of the lesson. If you have places to go, you're welcome to sign off right now. You can always come back and watch this video later and see what we covered. You know, I know for our friend, it's getting close to 4 in the morning. She said she's her own boss. She can sleep in, but if you want to come back later and cover this, no problem. I'm taking your questions. We can decode news live right now. We can decode sports. We can go over anything that was unclear. 108 chants for the Hare Krishna in Hinduism. Yeah, a lot of 108 spirituality. Connor McDavid won the NHL scoring title with 108 points last year. It's a number that shows up all the time. Again, in the Super Bowl, they saw 108 game balls. The Boston Red Sox just set a record this year with 108 wins and 54 losses. Trisha, stay until the end. She's a trooper. So right now, it's your guys' time. We got through the primary teachings of the lesson. Whatever questions you guys got right now, whatever you want to look at live, we can do it. Here, I'll just pull up, let's just see what's going on in the news right now. See if we got any new news stories. Cause of death released for teen football player in Georgia. So I did a video on this last week, how many Scottish Rite tributes were in this young man's death and even in his own name. And let's just see what they got for us for his cause of death. High school football player died of cardiac arrest. He died of cardiac arrest, huh? So, because I've seen this so many times, I remember the story. Look at this. His name's Dylan Thomas, right? Cardiac arrest. Look at this. We're just going to copy and paste cardiac arrest into the calculator. You see the value of 57? There's the 96 too, big Freemason number, but his name's Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas, Gematria 57. And this news comes today. This is the breaking news today, October 9th, 2018. The numerology of today, 10 plus 9 plus 20 plus 18, 57. 57 date numerology. So on the date with 57 numerology, we find out Dylan Thomas, whose name equals 57, died from cardiac arrest. And the 96 as well is a big number with Freemason. If you missed my video on his death last week, there was just Masonic coding up and down. So, I mean, it really is this simple. And understand, when you do your news decodes, always get the date numerology, because so often the story is synced up with the date numerology. And you know what else it is about today? Again, today, October 9th, is the day leaving 83 days left in the year. This is a football-related story. Football 83. That song Murder by Numbers came out in 83. Um, and, you know, I'm not a doctor, but it doesn't sound very typical. The story was that this young kid got a concussion. He went to the sidelines. He was sitting on the bench, and then he collapsed. And then he was taken to the hospital. Um, it just doesn't make sense for somebody to die of cardiac arrest at that age from getting hit in the head. I can understand getting a concussion and maybe going to the sideline and collapsing and being knocked out, but to die from cardiac arrest, that seems a bit wild to me. So that's how it is with the live sports decode. Yeah. 07 thought it was really interesting how all the native teams were crushed on Christopher Columbus Day. In case you missed what I said about the scores, so in baseball we had one of the native teams getting beat 6-2, and with the alphabetic order genocide 62. In the football game, the score was 43-19, a sum of 62 points. The biggest play of the game that set the record for the quarterback was a 62-yard touchdown pass. The other game where the natives got destroyed, the score was 11-3, like 113, like Scottish. And consider that the two baseball teams that eliminated the native teams met last year in the 113th World Series. So this is how you can prove day after day that what you see in sports is scripted, as the announcers always tell you. You couldn't have scripted it any better. But then you see just how sick the scripting is. And if any of you missed the work I did on Monday Night Football and the Christopher Columbus tributes, please check it out, because it's all synced up with the Vatican and the Pope, and it's mind-blowing. And I just hate to think that there's people in the world who could witness those videos or the video content that I put out on that and dismiss it as coincidence, because it is most definitely not. Let's see, making sure I'm not missing any questions here. Zach, did you make yourself a list of the most common numbers with corresponding words, or memorize them from just seeing them over and over? So I never made any lists like that, Crystal. The way I came to understand the repetitive meanings is just seeing how often they're used in certain things. You know, so many people die in connection to the number 38. And when I discovered that the word death equaled 38, I said, oh, okay, well, this is starting to make sense. And then in time, I realized killing was 38, and murder was 38, and RIP is 38. And then I learned the song Murder by Numbers that came out in 83. And then I saw there was a song called Gematria, the killing name, and Gematria something 38. And I said, okay, this is not an accident. In case you guys didn't see, a woman for The Bachelor, season 15, just dropped dead at the age of 38. They said she had a seizure. She was in season 15, right? 15 has this gematria of 38. The Bachelor also has gematria of 97. She died on a date with 52 numerology, but The Bachelor equals 97. Also, like, death when you flip the alphabetic order around. And dead at 38 was she by the numbers. Season 15. So somebody found something interesting in the NHL. Keep an eye on that note. Yeah, almost all the trades in the world of sports are riddles and tributes. And if you follow them, you see where they're going. Seth says he wants to stop this Zionist agenda in the world, and he says he feels like that's all he wants to do. And, well, yours truly feels the same way. I mean, that's how this all got to happen in the first place. I was determined to figure out what these people were up to, and put in a lot of time and research, and here we are today. A scholar once told me, reading William's comment here, a scholar once told me that the first 5 books of the Bible are the physiological makeup of man, and that every word has purpose and will alter your mind just by reading it. Well, that's essentially what Manly P. Hall said too. And Again, the first 5 books of the Bible are the Torah, which are 187 chapters. Remember, all of the Abrahamic religions are connected. Whoops, I didn't spell it right. All of the Abrahamic religions are connected to the Torah, and Abrahamic's 187. That's why there's that big obsession with that number with Freemasonry and all the things that it's coded into. And again, the Bible has repackaged, well, at least according to what these teachers in the world have said, the Bible has repackaged this ancient knowledge, including Hermeticism, Kundalini, alchemy, Kabbalah, repackaged it into its own story. And again, your comment about how reading it will alter the mind and body, that's the purpose of alchemy. That's the purpose of all of these spiritual studies. So, who was the child to the Freemasons that they needed to? Who was this child to the Freemasons? I think I missed your question from. Oh, you're probably speaking about the young child, the football player. Well, I don't know the answer to that. And actually, when I made the video last week, I said, we've seen before where there's these suspicious deaths of young people in the news, including Trayvon Martin. And his father was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason, and his son was buried on March 3rd, 3/3, the same day Rodney King was beaten in history. And it just makes you wonder what's going on. Is it that these people are willing to sacrifice their own to climb a ladder, or is it that they broke the code and this is the consequence? I don't have all the answers, but what we can see is the numerical riddles, and we can understand why these stories come the day they do. Shoot. The chat even skips down in here. Let's see. Trisha G says a lot of British football players have died from the same thing. You know, Trisha, a lot of athletes die prematurely, and their deaths are reported as, you know, bizarre seizures, heart failure. And when I was younger and I would see these stories and these young people dying, a lot of times they would say it's because they were using performance enhancing substances and it made their heart blow up or it made their body overdo it. I used to accept that, honestly, but now just seeing this code and seeing how all of this stuff is presented in such perfect numerical sequence, I have my doubts. You know what's really interesting that also just happened in my own life? I'm remembering this now. The day after I did the video on that football player, the very next day, my girlfriend goes, "Oh my God, I just got some bad news from Burma." She's from Burma. Her family's back over there. She goes, "This person that we consider our family," and then she told me the relationship. I think it was like her sister's husband's sister's nephew. So it was like a distant gap in this person, but it was something like that. She said he just died and he was just a young person. And then what had happened is he was a goalie in soccer, or as they call in football, the rest of the world. And he went to save the ball and he was playing hard and he smashed his head on the goalpost and he split it open and he got a massive lump. And over there, they don't have the best medical treatment. So the doctor couldn't really do a lot for him. They told him to rest. And I guess it had been about 2 months and he had not recovered from this injury. He still had a significant lump on his head. And he was supposed to continue to rest until he was back to normal. And I guess what happened was he's a young man. He lived with his family. He really wanted to go back out and play some soccer. That was his love. So when his mother wasn't at home, who was keeping an eye on him, he went out and decided to go play soccer with his friends. And he was playing soccer, and lo and behold, he hit his head again, and he died. The details, I actually asked my girlfriend to see if she could figure out what his birthday was, because I was just curious about his death in light of the organic side of this code and the way things worked out. And what I found out then is that he was 20 years old, and I found out his birthday, and he died 38 weeks and 1 day after his birthday. And Look at this. In the two first ciphers that I learned for Gematria, the alphabetic order and the alphabetic orders with the rules of numerology, death is 20, and he died 38 weeks and 1 day after his 28th birthday, or his 20th birthday. And when I looked at it, I said, God, that is just so weird, you know? I mean, he shouldn't have died. I mean, he just shouldn't have been out there playing soccer. He was supposed to get rest, but he wanted to go out and play. And then the way it worked out, he smashed his head again, and he died there on the field. And I guess what happened was after he hit his head, he started like convulsing and puking everywhere, and then that was it. And the fact that it worked out by those numbers just really blew my mind when I saw that. I said, okay, so there is definitely something to this organic side of the code. And the other thing that felt weird is I was talking about the day before, you know, this young football player who was in the news for dying by the numbers. But his story, the young football player story is more suspicious because, I mean, it's like this young man in Burma, in a way, he killed himself because he was supposed to be resting and then he smashed his head again. This young guy in the football game, he's wearing protective equipment. He didn't get some massive lump on his head from smashing into a pole with no helmet. You know, he got knocked out and taken to the hospital, and then I believe he died 2 days later. I mean, so it's not exactly the same, but there definitely is an organic side to this code, and it seems to have to do with our births as well as our passing in this world. So my ex-coworker died at age 60, Special K writes. I decided him and his number added up to the Freemasonry. He was a Mason, buried with his necklace and headgear. I'd have to know more about it. The word order has that Gematria 60 with the alphabetic order. Are all of the sports players in on the script? I believe at the professional level they are. I do believe they are at the professional level. I think at college, just some key players are in on it, and all of the coaches. Brandon D points out that a lot of black people in the media have the numbers 42, 59, and he also says 38 coded on them. I've noticed the 42 and 59 thing definitely. Special K, I got bad news for you about tennis, but we'll save it for another time. I don't want to spoil it. Great sport. I used to play a lot of tennis. Yeah, learning this can definitely make you angry for the tyrants. And I don't know, sometimes you just have to be angry. But get some exercise, do things so it doesn't overtake you. Try to exercise and eat right. That keeps me in balance. Did I see anything with the Nikki Haley story? Yes, I put out a video on the Nikki Haley story today. Today has 57 numerology, as we just talked about. In the same way that cardiac arrest sums to 57, so does United Nations. And please see the video I put out earlier. There's some measurement things with her birthday and Donald Trump's birthday that stand out. But the big thing is she was the ambassador to the United Nations, and today has the right numerology for United Nations news. Whoops, we got the chat skipped down again. Shoot. So is Gematria related to a study called Geotran? That is something about number codes from the Bible. Well, that's a new word for me. I guess we can just look it up in real time. But number codes from the Bible, I'm already going to say it's related because that's what this is. I'll look more into this later, but if this is all about Geotran is a numerical digital geometric language entered at specific points called spin points on and around the body. Well, it looks like this has to do with more than the Bible. But I'll research that more. If it is related to the Bible, then yeah, it's absolutely related. Crystal Rain says she wonders if we're going to die by the numbers. You know, my guess is that because there's an organic side of this code, and it seems that so many of us are born by the numbers in connection to the people we came from, all things being equal, there probably is some real geometric symmetry to when we pass from this world. I would just imagine that that's the way it is. Can you do names of people and what to look for? So, Vince, again, when you come to the Gematria calculator, if you don't want to do this by hand, what I would do is I would get rid of every cipher except for full reduction, the dark blue one, and I would type in all of the names that are relevant to you, your friends, your family, your parents, and of course use your own name and see what you see. See the relationships that appear, and also if you know people's birthdays, if you calculate the birth numerology. Derek does have a thing on here for I think if you put in a date, what I don't like that Derek did is he created all these different numerical paths for breaking down the date, and from what I've read, there's not really this many paths. Maybe there are, but he's just created so many numbers up here by doing this. It's overwhelming. So in my book, there's a spot where I show you how to break down the different numerology paths. Again, at the end of this video, I'm going to link the post where you can download the book in case you haven't yet. As an $11 member, you get the book. It's not too far into the book where I show how to break down the date numerology. Learn those paths, break down the date numerology for your friends' birthdays, your family members' birthdays, and compare it with the name Gematria too, and just see what stands out. So. I see. Yeah, a lot of people are born with the heart conditions. My good friend, it's my best friend growing up. His name's Adam, which also sums to 19, that number that's attractive to me. He's had a heart condition from birth too, and yeah, it's unfortunate that so many people got to deal with so many different health things. So Seth is talking about how, he's wondering what's organic and what's the man-made stuff. And again, to me, it seems that nearly everything in the media that's pushed on us is man-made and contrived. Like if you saw my video on the supposed Hollywood coffee shop shooting that happened early this morning, it's just every single one of these stories, they don't really add up. And then so often the names they put out are ridiculous, like Snowchia Mosley, and just day after day, these ridiculous names, these stories that don't add up, all the numbers fit together by the same repetitive patterns. Always syncing up with the governor. It doesn't feel organic to me. I mean, why would God make storms perfectly sync up with where the governor is in a state? Or, you know what I mean? It's just, that feels so manipulated to me, especially in light of the fact that it's always done around the number 52. And since 52 world militaries have admitted to the weather warfare, I do understand, and I ask the same question. Isn't that a question? I say, well, could this be organic? But I mean, look at September 11, 2001. Did that feel organic to you, or did that feel like a master plan, a master manipulation by the numbers? Because I'm 99.99999% sure that that was a master manipulation, nothing organic at all. And again, I think they're abusing this code because they understand this is the way the world operates, and they're trying to tinker with the natural order of things by doing these manipulative acts. That's the way I would put it. When your number is up, your number is up. Yeah, and in these phrases that we have in our society, your number is up. Where's that stuff come from? I think it comes from this, understanding this study. I don't think that it's used more in the news in America, Desiree. I think it's used all across the world. And I'm in America and seeing more American news than any other news, so watching me it would definitely seem that way, but I'm pretty sure if I was somewhere else and paying attention to all their news, because oftentimes, again, when I see the international news that makes it over here, it's the same thing, especially in nations like France and Europe, Germany. But I do agree with what you're saying about everything being worse here. I mean, I don't know if it's still true in Europe. I remember Europe fought real hard to keep out the genetically modified food. And last time I checked, they had a lot better environmental regulations. I feel like in the United States, it's like a toxic experiment over here to see just how much we can take. And thankfully, people seem to be pretty resilient. But again, I was talking about this the other day. I mean, the most concerning thing to me out of all the things that I see in the world right now, even more than all the fear porn on TV, is I realize that the natural environment is really dying. And I see it so clearly in insect populations. It wasn't that long ago that if you drove your car in the summer anywhere outside of the city, as soon as you got out of the city and started driving, your car would it would be the bug holocaust. There'd be bugs all over your window, the front of your car, anytime in the summer. And that has not been the case for the last 5 years. Last 5 years, you can drive long distance outside the city and you might not even hit a single bug. And it never used to be that way. And you just see less and less birds. All the things that feed on bugs, they're dying off too. I mean, the bugs, it's the cycle of life. So it may, we've all seen the stories about where are the bees going, but I'm saying where are all the bugs going? There's just less bugs, period, by a lot. I mean, an insane amount less. I can't even, it's just, it's unreal amount less. I wish I could take pictures of what my car used to look like in the summer, not that many years ago compared to now. I can drive 3 hours outside of the city and maybe not even have a bug splat on the windshield. That was impossible. So something is going on in this world. Crystal says, what if we learn this code and figured out how to use it for peace? Well, it's a nice thought. I mean, it's a possibility. To me, it's like my purpose is understanding this code is the way to see through how we're being manipulated as a world populace and turned against each other, and how all sorts of unnecessary evils taking place. Where's the good side of the numbers? I would say the good side is just being able to see the organic things, like, me being able to see just how my parents' numbers line up with my own. It just blows my mind. And then being able to answer other things. I'm sure you guys have heard me say before, like how the name Katie equals 19, and that number is so significant to me. And now I can finally understand what it was always about with Katie's. It just like it gives you this extra layer of like, oh, okay, there's something like this going on in the world. Okay, now I see what's going on with these things that seem to be mysteries before. So to me, the good side is greater understanding of the world we live in and the way it operates. Let's see here. Chat skipped on me again. I cover sacred geometry in the book and how it really syncs up with the language. Yeah, I think the it has a lot more flavor in a lot other parts of the world. Now that I live out here in the countryside, I have a friend out here and he has an organic garden. And oh my God, when I eat the food from his garden, it is just so good. I have a ton of vegetables from his garden right now, and I just love to chop them up and throw them in everything because Oh my God, they're just so much better than the stuff you get in the store. It's amazing. It is amazing. And my girlfriend being from essentially the third world in Burma, you know, she says like where she came from was poor town, hardly even any electricity, but the food is just so much better. Everything tastes better over there. So yeah, I think we get cheated on a lot of things here in the States. Trisha's going to share all the sevens, referring to Andy Murray. I look forward to that. I'm trying to remember if Andy Murray was supposedly the tennis player that witnessed the Dune Blaine massacre. Forget which tennis player that was over there that says he witnessed that. If you've never seen my work on the Dune Blaine massacre, it's in the book. It's all synced up with Sandy Hook. The 666 address for the Fox Theater. I just want to show you guys something about the word Fox in Gematria real quick. So in our most pure cipher, F breaks down to 6, O is the 15th letter, 1 plus 5 is 6, X is the 24th letter, 2 plus 4 is 6. So the letters F, O, and X in this cipher, you see they each become 6, right? In the English extended cipher, what's really interesting is the word fox is 666. And I've talked about that before with regards to that theater, which you brought up. So it's on Peachtree Street. Let's just see what a Peachtree is and the Peachtree Street, just for kicks. Peachtree's 45, like Fox. Isn't that nice? Geometry. Mathematics. Is anything related to the Bible false? Well, I can't answer that question. There's a lot of things in the Bible I don't agree with. Yeah, in case you guys missed what I showed about Florida, again, the word flood equals 52, the word hurricane equals 52. It's supposed to impact Florida tomorrow, Wednesday, 52 days from the governor's birthday, plus a number of other things. Luna, I hope this stream's not laggy for you. I was hoping it would be clear. Seth brings up the Zohar, very important Kabbalah text. The Zohar says a lot of very interesting things, including that human behavior can influence God. That is true, according to the Zohar. Somebody, TJ Trusty says, did you see that the Roman numerals for 2020 equals 74? That's interesting. That is interesting. You just brought it to my attention. What's the gematria of lab rats? I don't know, but we can look. Let's just look in our base ciphers here. Lab rats. Huh. Lab rat has gematria of 73, like sacrifice. In a way, they kind of are for scientific research, aren't they? But I do agree with you. I feel like we are treated like we're lab rats, like we're being experimented with in all sorts of ways, you know? And we tolerate it. Whenever I hear these pharmaceutical commercials, I often think like, God, who would ever want to use that product after all the warnings they just put there? I mean, seriously? It's like there's just so many things that seem like experimentation, from the food to the medicine to whatever they're doing in our skies. I can't believe how many people can't see these strange occurrences going on in our skies. And for a number of years, I've been wondering if what Prince, the musician, said on Tavis Smiley was true, or if he was just throwing something out there that was nonsensical. If you never saw Prince interviewed on Tavis Smiley, it was about a decade ago now. He said that the reason they're spraying the skies is to influence our behavior. And where I live now, where I lived before in Seattle, they sprayed the sky all the time. And where I live now, they don't do it so much. Um, it's a smaller town out here. And the other day, I just woke up and I just felt so angry and hostile. And I remember I made some videos and I was just like, I was ranting and I just felt all disturbed and messed up inside. And I went outside and I realized the entire sky was just like sprayed like a nonstop TikTok pattern. I was like, wow. I was like, all I can think of is instantly is what Prince said in that Tavis Smiley interview. I was like, okay, I'm feeling really hostile today. And lo and behold, the sky has not looked like this the whole time I lived here. So I don't think they are joking about that, or I don't think Prince was joking. I think that was the truth. Yeah, yeah, Andy Murray. He's also, so it was Andy Murray that was at the Dune Blaine massacre, and he's also had many numerological outcomes in tennis. You can even search my blog for some work I've done on that guy. Seth says that Serta Trump commercial is too telling. It sure is. It is a major piece of mocking, that commercial. So many layers of coding in it. And just the dialogue on the surface talking about being born for the job. Trisha says she feels like she's made new brain cells tonight. I'm glad to hear that. Hope you all are appreciating it. Miss Mildred tried out the Shackley. Very cool. Very cool. What is Shackley? Crystal says. I brought up Shackley because I said my mom cleaned houses and she learned about Shackley back in the 70s. They make all organic. Well, not everything's organic. A lot of it's organic. It's at least all natural. There's nothing toxic in their products. But they make cleaners. They have all sorts of things, vitamins. My mom's mostly gotten the cleaners because she's a cleaning lady and she wanted to clean with non-toxic things. It's a little pricey, but it's better than having harmful chemicals, cancer-causing agents in your house. So they've been a reputable company, and I just brought that up the other day on a live stream. So I guess some people are living in it, and very cool that you're checking it out, and hope you enjoy it. Basic H, yeah, William knows. I mean, that's what my mom uses Basic H all the time. That's so funny. You are definitely a Shackley guy. Oh, and Miss Mildred, okay, she's already sharing the information here. I'm just reading down the chat, trying to catch up with you guys. So Charlotte's getting it again, huh? It's too bad. That is too bad. Hope you're safe out there. That's funny, Special K. Well, I guess maybe that's the organic side there. That is very interesting. February 15th, huh? You're born on the 46th day of the year. I do remember the stuff with Dolly Parton. I talked about it recently. Then again, I talk about a lot of things, but yeah, I absolutely remember. That was some major mocking there with the Dolly Parton Joel 119 Bible verse found. Yeah, that was some mind-blowing stuff. Well, you guys, do you want to keep this going? Is there any other questions, or should we call it a night? I won't shut it down until I hear you guys are satisfied, but I know it's late for some of you. Thank you, Desiree. I appreciate that. It would be even better if we were all in a classroom setting, but this will have to make do for now. Okay, can you guys do me a favor? You don't have to do it tonight, but when you get on the Patreon page, so here, can you come down to this comments, and can you leave a comment for something you would like to learn about? And because just as I plan the lessons for the weeks ahead, I want to have, input from you guys on what you would like to learn about, and I'll work that in accordingly. So if you can leave a comment down here below this first day of class video, make sure you do it on this one because that's where I'm going to look. Like, don't leave the comment here for the ALS, leave it for here for the Gematria School. And I'll take your input and put it into the weeks ahead. Yeah, I think you did some good research there, Nope, on the NHL. Glad you guys all enjoyed it. Oh, the baseball game just ended. That was something we could have looked at in real time. The Red Sox closed out the Yankees 4-3. So there they go. Thought they might take it to a game 5, but the guy who pointed out that the Red Sox pitcher could go 18-7 tonight. You guys, the Red Sox pitcher, I can't think of his name. It had Gematria of 187. New York Yankees is 187, and if he got the win tonight, his record is now 18-7. So. What else? New York Yankees is 191, which is the 43rd prime number. The final score 4-3. They close out the Yankees by the numbers. They close out the Yankees on October 9th. Yankees 109, like 10/9. So looks like the Red Sox. Well, we'll see. They're looking like the team in the American League. We'll see. Just so you guys know, I don't live in Seattle anymore. It's about a 3-hour drive to Seattle from where I am, but I just moved to a smaller town in Washington. A lot different weather where I live now. So for anyone who missed the beginning of this video, once we end it, it'll either all be available immediately, or sometimes it takes like an hour to load the entire video, but definitely by the time you come back, if you come back tomorrow, the whole video will be here. So anything you missed tonight, you'll just come here to the page. You'll come to this post, first day of class, Gematria School. You'll just click play, and it'll start over from the beginning. So, and if you want to see the chat as you go along, you have to click the YouTube in this video here on the page. and then it'll load up the whole window, and you should be able to see the chat replay from tonight. It should give you a replay of the chat in real time. Somebody says, I like the idea of starting on the book, or maybe have a different, very basic class for the newbies. We can do that at nights. We can go over chapters of the book, and if you got questions on chapters of the book, we can absolutely do that. Thanks, Seth. It's only possible because of people like you, so I appreciate all you guys supporting and investing. Means a lot here, too. Very grateful. Hey, before we go, I was just thinking about this. I want to know how you guys feel about this. When we do this class live, after it's done being live, do you think that I should make it so that everybody who's on Patreon can watch the replay of it later? How do you guys feel about that? So that even the people who invest $1, they can watch, as soon as this ends tonight, we end the live stream. Should we make it so that anybody can watch it after? And the privilege of paying the 11 is to get to be here live and have the questions. How do you feel about that? All right, seems like everybody's in agreement. Because then the privilege is to be here live and get your questions answered. If I made it available to everyone, which I'm going to do on the last Tuesday of each month, then the chat will be super crazy and it'll make it harder to get your question and get your question answered. So we'll see how it goes on the last Tuesdays of each month. But yeah, I don't see the harm in letting people. Seems like I haven't seen anyone say no yet. Oh, somebody's saying maybe the $5 tier. So I see your strategy, Vince, so that people can have an incentive to upgrade. Well, that's true. That's like from a financial standpoint, but some people really are broke, and for some people, $1's a lot. So, okay, but wait a week or two to do it. All right, maybe I'll do it after next week. $11 a month is very affordable, but for some people, some people really don't have the money. But yeah, I feel like $11 is a pretty bargain price to essentially get 8+ hours of teaching a month. So okay, I'll hold off on doing it just yet. I'll think about it for another week or two. But because I guess on the flip side, I do put out a ton of free content for everyone anyway. So. Well, I appreciate all of you investing, especially the people who it's expensive for. Well, there are moderators here, and I did see you guys helping each other a lot with the questions already tonight. So it looks like there's good communication in the chat. That might break down if there's too many people here. Should the end of month class be the same quality as the other weeks? Won't you have advanced with newbies? Well, every week I feel like the way I'll teach, it'll be clear. Of course, it'll be easier if you've been following for longer and have the other lessons, but I think anybody will be able to jump in any week and follow along. And again, I'm taking time to stop and ask people questions. So people who bought the book first. Oh, I see. I see. You already had bought the book, and then I appreciate that you did both, and by you buying the book, it helps up that number, which I'm trying to use as a lure for a publisher to help me out with getting it in print. So I appreciate that you did both. Okay, this idea about a moderator helping with questions and cutting and pasting questions. I'm, you know what? You know what would I'm trying to think about the best way to do this. I think the easiest way to do this in the future is if there's, I know what I'll do in weeks forward. I'll ask people to put comments here. Like if you want a question answered and to stand out from the chat, to post it here instead of in the chat. I'll ask people to use the chat to ask me questions when I let people know I'm looking at it, like I did tonight. And I'll say if there's a question that comes up while I'm presenting, to post it here. You see what I mean? On this part of the screen, because then I can come back and look at this and it'll still be there. I won't have to scroll through everything that I missed while I was presenting. Somebody said, why can't I self-publish? Well, most of these places that like BookBaby and stuff, in a way, they are self-publishing. They help you self-publish. But the problem that I ran into with my book that all of these self-publishing things say is my book is in like a legal gray area because I don't own the headlines. If you've read my book, you know there's a lot of news headlines in there. They're saying because I don't own those headlines that there could be a legal problem. So I don't know. It was like BookBaby was going to do it at first, and then they decided not. They told me it wasn't going to be a problem, and then it was. And then I talked to other publishers, and it's been the problem. So, and I don't want to rewrite the book without the headlines. So I'll check out this Lulu. Maybe that is an option. So I'll have to look that up. Thanks for the happy belated Teachers Day. Maybe I should have had the first class on October 5th. But today wasn't such a bad day in the beginning day. Have I looked at Amazon? I really don't want to use Amazon. I don't know. If I get desperate, I'll use Amazon. So. All right, you guys, I think we'll wrap it up here for tonight. We're coming up on the 3rd hour, and I really appreciate all of you again supporting and tuning in and listening and your questions. And again, if there's things you really want to learn about, leave it here in the comments. I'll put together another lesson for next week. questions or things you'd like to learn about that seem appropriate for next week, I will build them into the lessons. And hope everyone has a good night or good day wherever you are in the world. I know for somebody it's in the early morning right now, so thank you again, all. We will be back in class next Tuesday, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot from me before then. All right, take care, truth seekers.